Sarah has a question about the larynx position. It's a great question because it gets asked a lot, and I believe tends to be a lot of confusion about this because of different styles of singing. So the question is, should your larynx ideally be in a stationary position?
And the question is, it depends what you want it to sound like and
Yeah.
feel. And
Sarah, maybe you can take yourself off mute and clarify it a little bit.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. It was really good. I just wanted to know about, I suppose, what's the most healthy larynx position that like wouldn't cause strain, wouldn't cause vocal damage or anything like that. Like, is the larynx supposed to be flexible, or ideally should you always be keeping it in a stationary position?
you know what? That is such a good question. So the most, and there is no one answer for this, by the way, but the most neutral position, and that's neutral both in compression and in position and in, tension versus effort, is going to be the healthiest. But our body has been designed or evolved into doing amazing things that are outside the neutral as well, like a sprint, like a stretch, like standing on your toes, and doing things that are outside of your complete neutral. And early lockdown, I went to my physio because I was saying, like, I'm trying to sit correctly. I bought a better chair since I'm sitting more. And he was like, well, your body is made for movement. So you can sit as correct as you want, but those muscles are going to get tired if you're on them all the time. So I then vary between sitting on a yoga ball. I will stand for some lessons. I will sit on a proper chair. I'll go in the sofa for a bit. If I have long days online or long office day, I also bought one of those things where I can regulate how. So I'm not going like this, because this is it's an epidemic of
Yeah.
getting on the phone and stuff like that, and all of this aligns with everything else. So like a strong core, but if you're too strong, then you might not have good enough back muscles to help this. So like it's all about balance, and it's that finding that equilibrium in the body and in your technique and everything. Then it's like ice cream and exercise. I'm a songwriter, that's why all the metaphors. But like it's the more you exercise, the more you could have more ice cream. So it's not a necessarily the food group that you should have the most of, but it's not going to kill you if you have a little bit of ice cream. Does that make sense? Well, it depends if you're lactose. Anyway, let's not go there.
I think it makes perfect good sense. That's why I rationalize having my ice cream every day. But it's a great question, Sarah. And I've been taught by different master teachers, gone through different methodologies. I'm a really big believer in that the larynx needs to remain flexible. I try and tell my students, like a sail on a boat or a flag, if it's got to be able to sail and move. And optimally, like I believe what Kaya just said as well, if you have it in that neutral position and you allow for movement, not being overly concerned, unless you're going really for a very specific dark sound design, and even then by forcing it down, you can enter in this tension zone where things stop working. Just allow it to ride a little bit. We have another great question comment from no. Type in your name so I all I have on there is no. But no says he's working a lot with people with trans voice, and the modification of the larynx position is very important for that more masculine or feminine quality, and that's absolutely correct. The higher the larynx, the lighter. Ama, I'm going to call you as Ama. If it's Ama, then I apologize. But Ama, thanks for all the great questions. All right, so the higher the larynx position, the lighter, brighter sound is going to be. And the lower, the darker. And Kai did a great job at demonstrating this. So if you think of where your larynx has a maximum range of motion, right? You can't just jump out your throat and you're not going to swallow it down to your stomach. It has a limited range of motion. So the higher it is, generally, the smaller your range of motion is going to be as well. Right? If you keep it up the whole time, you're not going to have a lot of possibilities in your sound designs, in your color. It's going to sound very, very bright and high most of the time. And likewise, if you're locking it down, you have also a limited range of motion. So that's going to limit your vocal possibilities. So that's what usually people that have been taught to really keep it in one position, they're either going for one sound, one style sound all the time, or they get in the problem that they're not able to access flexibility and different ranges of sound because they're always pulling it down. That limits your range of motion. So the more neutral that larynx can be and have, and this is one of the activities of singing in my 4 activities of singing course, dynamic movement potential, then it's ready to go anywhere it needs to go and you have flexibility in your voice. And I'm just like Kaya. I actually created that term myself from sports science on how muscles work, and that's a really interesting evolution, in sports, as I played a lot of sports, and Kaya and anybody that's been involved in sports over the past 30 years knows the way we warm up today is completely different than what we did 30 years ago, and that's based on science. Because if everybody's working and warming up with dynamic muscle movement, and that applies directly to singing. Singing is always in motion.